Our son is now about 27. When he was 20 years old, he had a psychotic break. Prior to that time, we knew something was going on with him, but we had no idea it was a mental illness. We thought he was abusing street drugs, and there was some indication that, well, we knew he had smoked pot, but we just thought he was doing drugs. And a lot of the behaviors that he exhibited were some that you would expect to see with drug use. You know, he kind of withdrew from family and friends, was still doing okay in school, but you know, just didn't want to do family things, and that was a real change in personality for him. Prior to that time, he had always been a happy, loving brother. I mean, he was really a good kid. Never got in trouble in school. Very self-motivated. Loved school. Did very, very well. And graduated and the top 10 students in his class from private school. That probably was the first thing, that his close relationship with his family was the first fracture. After that, it was certain friends at school. He had friends that he was very, very close to that he kind of pulled away from. He was out of the country on a cruise with his dad. By the time they got home and did drug testing and so forth, there were no drugs in his system. But he was critically psychotic. His eyes were rolling back in his head. He was hallucinating visually and auditory hallucinations as well. He was paranoid and required immediate hospitalization. So he was in full-blown crisis. He spent several weeks in psychiatric hospital and then was eventually released to us because he was what they would call stable. Unfortunately, I had not seen him on admission. His father and stepmother had admitted him to the hospital, so I didn't see him until several days into his hospitalization. What I got out the other end was a kid who was fully psychotic, who was paranoid, who thought my husband was trying to hurt me or hurt us. We knew the diagnosis, but that was about it. I didn't know what it was. My husband didn't know. We had to educate ourselves as best we could. In the meantime, we were dealing with this adult who's 20 years old and who didn't think he was ill at all. There wasn't anything wrong with him in his mind, but there was something wrong with us because we thought he was sick and we thought he needed to go to the hospital and we thought he needed to take medication. He's been on lots of medication. I think there are only 2 or 3 that he has not been on. He is currently, and for the last couple of years, been on what we call a cocktail. He's on about 4 different antipsychotic and mood-altering medications. He has taken the new antipsychotics as well as some of the old ones. And they have different effects for him. It's a trial and error thing. What we have learned is that each person with schizophrenia has a different mechanism in their head. Their brain functions, it's a biochemical mechanism, and each person responds differently to medication. We don't know why, whether it's the cause or whether it's that person's body, but there's no test, there's no way to know which medication or which. It's not like you, with an antibiotic, you can go in and figure out which bacteria is causing the infection and then treat that specific bacteria. But with mental illness, we don't have that option. So you try something, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. And if that doesn't work, you try something else. And then you start adding things in until you find something that works. NAMI is well known for their educational programs. And through the support group, my husband and I were encouraged to attend what's called a family-to-family class. This is a class where family and loved ones, if you have a loved one with a mental illness, family or friends, can attend this class and you learn about mental illness. We learned about mental illness, we learned about medications, we learned about the brain, we learned about resources in the community, we learned about coping mechanisms. We learned about how to communicate with our son when he was in psychosis and how to keep from playing into his delusions and yet get him where he needed to be to get help. So between the support group and NAMI's educational classes, I think NAMI, more than anything, literally saved my life.